Hi, my name is Chris Brennan, and I'm at the United Astrology Conference this week in Chicago doing interviews with different astrologers to get a sense for what kind of lectures are being presented and what's going on the ground. So joining me today is Lee Lehman, Dr. Lee Lehman, who you're giving two lectures here. What are the titles of your lectures?
Oh, now you've hit me with what the titles are.
The titles are,
yeah, more or
broadly
less.
speaking.
I'm talking this afternoon on the use of planetary hours in electional astrology.
Okay.
And then on Tuesday, I'm talking on the four humors and that whole system in medical astrology.
Sure. So those are actually the topics of two of your books. You've actually written two books one on medical astrology and one on electional astrology, right?
Right. And what I'm really happy to be able to present today on electional is this is material that I just touched upon in the book. But what this is really so important for right now, Chris, is that, as you know, and I'm sure a number of the people you've been talking to, and you know, that this is a tough year electionally.
Sure.
It absolutely is. I mean, retrograde's just stacked for the whole year. So what do you do when you have what we could consider pretty bad astrological weather?
Sure.
And so the planetary hours are one of the systems of what, you know, I've somewhat, in modern sense, updated the name as quick and dirty electionals, which are some of the systems we can use when we really can't get the full chart we would like to get.
So you just try to, I mean, I guess that's one of the big tricks that most electional astrologers learn pretty quickly is there's never an ideal chart. So most of the time,
yes.
you're just trying to make the best with what's available.
Exactly, exactly. And so, I mean, any electional astrologer is going to go first to the moon, right?
The moon,
because, you know, you work with the moon sign, you work with the strength of the moon. You work with, depending on the nature of the electional, whether it's a waxing or waning moon.
Sure.
And so we're all going to do that anyway. But, you know, one of the things that had brought this to mind when I really started to study some of the history of this was that back in the 80s when Joan Quigley was working with Reagan, what she had said, because she basically got 2-hour slices to elect.
Okay.
And now you've been in the trenches with electional. I've been in the trenches with electional. 2-hour stretches is not something any of us would want to do.
Right.
And so you think about these shorter lengths, and basically all she worked with was the part of fortune.
Okay.
And so you've got to pick something that moves enough in the course of a day to be able to say, how is this either hour or 5-minute interval different or better than anything else that I could pick during this time?
Sure, that makes sense. So will you be talking about the part of fortune a little bit in terms of this talk here?
Well, I'm actually going to put people through their paces, because what I'm going to do is show them how to actually do it.
Okay.
A little bit on the history of planetary hours, just so that people are up to date on how they work. And then we're going to do some working examples to show how you would actually work this into a practice. So yeah, when we start looking at particular times and showing people, well, you know, a planetary hour is cleverly roughly an hour.
Right.
Within that time, you will get changes in the part of fortune. So yeah, that's kind of like that's then kind of how you hone in on which moment in the planetary hour you might want to use.
Okay, brilliant. And that's actually, there's some overlap between the planetary hours and some of the magical traditions, right?
Yes.
It seems like that's where a large part of the interface is between those two traditions.
Yes, and in fact, you know, at this conference, there's a book that's been released on the topic of magic and astrology, and I had one chapter in there looking at this whole piece, because I think there were historical areas of electional astrology that more or less got parked in magic at a time when the Christian theology was getting to be a little too hot about prediction, and some of that really hasn't made it back.
Right.
So now seems to be the time that we're able to do that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I already picked up a copy of that book. I'm hoping to interview Austin, who edited it. And you have do you remember what your paper's on in that compilation?
That was exactly that topic.
Oh, it is on that topic.
Yeah, it's on that topic.
Brilliant. Okay, so people should pick up a copy of that, and I'll talk to Austin later about it. And your other topic is on medical astrology and the four humors?
Yes,
Okay.
right. The four humors, part of the basic medical system that was used for centuries. And it's also where the astrological interface is, because, of course, when Hellenistic astrology roared up, the Hippocratic medicine had already been established, was already using the four elements. And this was one of the great interface points, was bringing together the astrology and the signs with the elemental system. And this resulted in just an amazing amount of correlation that could be done, both in terms of prognosis and in terms of picking up things like herbs that could be used to help particular conditions. And so I'm going to be talking about this from the standpoint of generally temperament types, and from the standpoint of perhaps we'll probably talk about a few herbs that people can use to kind of tweak the system, because especially now, as people go through time and get impacted by planets, you can translate a planetary transit into a humoral effect. And by looking at it as a humoral effect, you can begin to, in advance, address some of the ways that you could keep that impact from affecting you medically.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like one of the core notions in traditional medical astrology is the idea of seeking balance in your constitution and using herbs or other things in order to counteract sort of trends that might throw your balance off and bring things back into alignment.
Exactly, exactly. And I think it's, now we call it wellness, but it really doesn't matter.
Sure. Okay, that's exciting. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Do you have anything else coming up that you're excited about or that you're working on? Like, do you have any secret? You've been churning out books over the past few years, so I assume you've got a couple.
There's one new one on the table that's about Saturn.
Okay.
I've just done one on Saturn in Capricorn and Aquarius that's really addressing the classical proposition that when a malefic is in dignity, that it acts in a less malefic fashion. And I thought, well, why not test it? Sure. And since I have horaries back to the days of the last time that Saturn was in Capricorn and Aquarius, I pulled some of those out, a lot of mundane stuff, a little bit of natal, and really addressed this question of what was Saturn doing the last time, the time before, the time before that. So there's kind of a historical presentation with charts to address this question.
Can you give me an answer? Do you feel like it's true that Saturn, when it's dignified by sign or exaltation, that does act as a mitigating factor?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does, but not completely.
Sure. I totally agree.
And the devil's in the details always.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm glad. Yeah, I feel the same way. So I'm interested. Do you know what's the title of that book?
It's called Saturn in Capricorn and Aquarius, Saturn at Home.
Brilliant. Okay. Where can people find out more information about your work?
Okay, well, they can go to leelehman.com, LeeLehman.com. Okay. And that book isn't posted yet. It'll be posted next week. Oh, really? But it's available here in the trade show.
Okay, awesome. So you've debuted it here at the conference?
Yes.
Brilliant. And how many UACs have you been to, by the way?
Every one.
Every one since 1987?
86.
86?
Yep.
Brilliant.
I think I counted it, and it's 9 now.
Right, and you always made a comment at Kepler that people used to tell time based on UACs in the astrological community. Because it's every 4 years or every 6 years or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks
for
joining me.
Still doing it.
Still doing it, and yes, going to keep doing it.
Yep, all right.
All right, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, and thanks everyone for watching. If you want to see more videos from UAC, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.